Welcome everyone to the River City Habitat for Humanity Housing Roundtable Discussion. This event is in part of Habitat International's International Women Build Week, and that is created in partnership with Lowe's, and it highlights the global need for women's access to safe and affordable housing. As you can imagine, it was difficult to get 6 busy women to have the same schedule to be able to meet. So this conversation has actually been pre-recorded earlier this week, but I'm going to play it for you now, and I will be on YouTube in the chat box if you have any questions. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for joining us today in celebration of International Women Build Week. Here at River City Habitat for Humanity, we are hosting this wonderful roundtable discussion with women leaders in Jefferson City. And so we want to talk just a little bit about what exactly Women Week is. And so here we go. So here at Habitat for Humanity, we believe that we should have a world where everyone has a decent place to live. International Women Week is in partnership with Habitat for Humanity, and Lowe's is bringing us Women Build Week. And there are over 300 women build projects throughout the United States, Canada, and India. It's a little different this year because of COVID. We're not able to actually be in person and building together, but we're all rising to the occasion and figuring out different ways that we can still bring women together virtually. A little bit of information about housing issues. In Missouri, 1 in 9 households are paying more than half of their income on housing, which means that they are cost burdened. And when you think about the costs of home, it's costing a whole lot more. And then they have to make tough choices for healthcare and education and food and transportation. And so we are asking you to join us to help make the cost of home something that we can all afford. And so today we are going to have a roundtable discussion with some amazing women to talk about housing issues in our community. So I'm going to pass it over to our moderator for today, Amy Gillespie.
Hi, thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. For those of you who are watching, we are hopeful today that our discussion will just bring awareness to the issues that are facing our community in the cost of home in Jefferson City and around our country, especially for women and single parents. So with that, I'm going to ask each of our participants today if they would just take 1 or 2 minutes to briefly introduce themselves. And I'll start with you, Tina.
Tina, you have to unmute yourself. Talking right along.
Again, I'm Tina Mollenkamp with Common Ground Community Building. We have a benevolence fund over there, and we also have a housing program we call Families Forward.
Thank you, Tina. Karen Taylor, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Karen Taylor. I'm pastor of mission at discipleship at First United Methodist Church. I currently serve on the board for Transitional Housing, which is a new 501c3 organization here in Jefferson City. I also serve on the board of the advisory board for the Salvation Army and involved in Project Homeless Connect.
Thank you, Karen. Natalie Walker.
Good morning. My name is Natalie Walker. I am a resident of Jefferson City, Missouri since 1999, and I am the director of Transitional Services with Compass Health in Jefferson City, Missouri.
Thank you, Natalie. Denise?
Hi, everybody. My name is Denise McCorkle. I'm honored to be the 2021 president of the Jefferson City Area Board of Realtors. have been a realtor locally in this area for over 25 years, and landlord and high school sports coach, and love giving back to the community. So also heavily involved in Capital City Productions as their foundation president and director of something. They just made me again recently. I can't ever remember the title, but I'm a sucker. They ask and I can't say no. So that's who I am.
Thank you. I believe Carrie, you're up.
Thank you. I'm Carrie Tergin, the mayor of Jefferson City. And as we highlight women in the community and our roles as women, I'm the second woman to be elected as mayor of the capital city. I've served for 6 years and was a city councilwoman for 6 years before that. So absolutely love serving our wonderful community. It's an honor to serve. And I'm also a small business owner. I have Carrie's Hallmark, which has been in our family for 45 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan, do you need any more introduction?
Oh, sure. How can you follow all those women? You saved me from all those amazing women I told you. So my name is Susan and I am the executive director here at River City Habitat for Humanity. I've been here almost 5 years, and I am chair of the Human Relations Commission for Jefferson City, and I work on our long-term recovery committee here in town following our tornado of 2019. I'm the housing chair of that committee, and some other things, but that's the most.
Thank you all. We have a great group here today. So without further ado, if you're ready, I have a few questions that we'll start. If you don't need to raise your hand. If you are ready to respond, I'll just ask you to respond. I'm not going to direct a question toward a particular person unless no one is answering, and then I might call you out. Okay. So first of all, if we could, let's talk about, what barriers do you see people in our town facing in order to obtain affordable housing?
Well, I'd be glad to speak to that. We have people come into our building every week who are looking for housing, and please, can you give us a list of landlords? They can't find housing that they can afford. But even if they do find it, many people are prohibited from even filling out applications because of prior evictions. The people that are able to fill out applications, they are having to pay large fees. We had one the other day come in, they wanted $45 to apply when she was pretty sure she wasn't going to get it. And we encouraged her to go ahead and do so. And sure enough, within 24 hours, she was denied the apartment. And so these are, people are having to apply many places, and landlords are taking several application fees on one apartment. We also see people who have been given access to public housing, but they may have old bills they haven't paid, especially electric bills. If you have an old Ameren bill, they won't let you into public housing until you get that paid off. Some people are, if they take the clients who are harder to place, they'll want double deposits. So that could, be a $900 deposit to get into a $450 apartment, and that's very prohibitive. Criminal records also slow people down from finding housing, and of course, sex offenders, which I guess falls under criminal records. But there are a lot of barriers to finding housing here in town.
And I would piggyback off Ms. Tina. One of the things that I noticed is from some of the people that I work with, they're able to find those houses. However, the quality of the house is not livable. And so, you get excited about getting this home, but then you get in there's so many things that need to be fixed. And a lot of the times the landlord will say, I'm going to work on these things, I'm going to get these things fixed. But none of these things are done. And so that person ends up living in a house that really is not livable.
Absolutely. Yes, we see that every day too.
We do too here at Habitat. A lot of our decision is based on their need for housing. And so they have to show that their current housing is unacceptable in one way or the other. And that's a big one. I mean, we see, we had a lady that the ceiling above her bed was falling down, and she'd asked her landlord to fix it, and it was water damage. And luckily it ended up finally falling down when she wasn't in the bed. But it's stories like that, just landlords that either are unable or unwilling to fix up apartments to make it safe housing that really keeps people from being able to be in something good, as well as the affordability. It is really hard, like you said, Tina, to find $900 to put down on a home while you're still probably paying rent somewhere else too. So it's definitely an issue.
That seems to move us kind of right in. Those answers, affordability, evictions, all of those things that led into safe housing. Maybe it's a physical standard in the house that Natalie mentioned and Susan followed up with, if the housing isn't physically, shouldn't be lived in. Are there other things that constitute safe housing? Are there other ideas about what is safe housing?
I think at the bare minimum, we have city codes that are in place, and we need to make sure that those codes are followed. So I think having a very good, reliable connection between all of your entities that are represented today, others that are watching, and then also our city, and making sure that as they see these things that they're reported, so that if they are code violations that we're able to address them. And just because it's a code violation doesn't mean it's just instantly taken care of. The person has time to take care of that, and sometimes that certain period of time can also cause issues as well. But just making sure that they're addressed, that they're notified and able to go through that process, so that if they're not going to be up to code, then we can follow the next steps in that process. So keeping in contact, I think, is very important.
I agree. And I also think when you're talking about safe housing, you're talking about neighborhoods. You're talking about how well the neighborhood is maintained, or how well it's policed, and the community comes together to be a neighborhood itself. So I think there's a lot that goes into safe housing besides just the maintenance of the building.
And I would say, just to piggyback on that, the facilities that I run are transitional living facilities. And so our clients are in our programs for 30 to 90 days. And a lot of times we assist with finding them housing. A lot of our clients, they have mental illness diagnoses, they have criminal records, they don't necessarily have the funds to afford a home. And so a lot of the times we end up sending our clients to the towers. Now, mind you, these clients are working on new begins, transitioning, recovering from substance abuse. And so I sometimes feel like we are putting them right back in the fire in that situation. And so even finding housing for my clientele is extremely challenging. And a lot of our clients go straight to Julie Hills and Towers. They're usually there for 3 to 6 months, and something happens and they end up right back in that cycle and right back in our facilities. And so just the success of them recovering is in jeopardy when we move them in those housings.
If I could piggyback off of that, I think that's one of the visions of transformational housing, is how are we building a supportive community around those who are moving from a state of homelessness or looking to transition to a more stable situation. And we firmly believe that building relationships and having a supportive system around folks through all those various stages are important. Again, we're just starting and we don't even have a place open yet. It'll be the end of the year before we'll have apartments ready, but that's going to be a key component of that. And I think that's an important part of helping create some safe housing situations.
And we can't wait, Karen. We can't wait. We're excited for the transformational housing.
I want to mention that on the transformational housing and having that area on Cherry Street. And I know that whole area is going to really be revitalized. And I think it's appropriate too. That was literally a tornado path that came through and devastated our community. So it's very symbolic to see things that are being rebuilt there. And not only that, the city, of course, is investing quite a bit in that area with the renovation, redevelopment of the historic penitentiary site. So we see history. We have a great location that's very walkable to all of our resources. And I think that that's something I know that sometimes people say, well, not in my backyard, or we don't want this here and there. But what we're seeing and what we need to advocate for is having these things with the collaboration where our neighborhoods are together, and we have redevelopment that creates jobs. So people can literally almost walk across the street from the transitional housing into these jobs, and being collaborative, because some people have been very established in that neighborhood for decades, and then we're going to have this. And so how can we welcome this into our neighborhoods and use this as a really good example so that we can share that in other parts of the city and all around our community, because we want it to be together. This is not about it's over there and somewhere else. Our community is as one, as a group together with all of our resources helping each other.
I love that, Carrie, because that is what Habitat does too. You know, we don't build in just one neighborhood. We want our homeowners to be part of the community and in the community and with regular homeowners too. And so I think that's really important to combat that NIMBY feeling.
Yeah. And one of our visions, again, with transformational housing is our apartments. The plan is for that to be multi-income. So it's not just one group of folks in there. It's people all across the spectrum, so they can build relationships and support and inspire each other.
And I think when we're talking about women, I think that's so important too, because I think we end up with a lot of women that are women-run households, head of households. And I think having that support system in place, which is kind of my hope for Habitat, that our Habitat homeowners are in the program together and they get to know each other and they help each other while they're going through it. But then also when they become homeowners, that they're helping each other out. So I think that's a really important key piece to all of it too.
I hear a lot of talk about the community, and that's such a good thing, and how important relationships are as part of that community and crossing all of those barriers. In addition to those mentioned, whether it's income or any of those things in the NIMBY feeling, another area that we might need to look at are racial disparities. What can we do to address racial disparities in our housing opportunities here in Jefferson City?
I would like to start with that. I can tell you some of my experiences, some of my personal experiences. When I moved up here in 1999, myself and my husband, and at that time we were not married. We were both college students and we were looking for housing. And what I noticed was there would be questioned more. There would be accusations of substance use. And then at one point I stopped bringing my husband along with me, and things changed. But then when I would put on the application that there was a male, I got negative feedback. And my husband didn't understand that, because while he wanted to come and look at the houses with me, and I started to kind of pull him back from coming. And I don't necessarily think we were just discriminated by race. I also think because we were college students. I also think because we were not married, there was some judgment about that. At that time, we didn't have children, but we both had great work history. We were new, so we probably had, beginner's credit. And I would get those things like the landlord would say, "Oh my God, you are such a great candidate. I love you." And then I would be excited about possibly getting this house and would never get a call back. And so my hopes was built up and I would never hear anything back. And a part of me would be like, I wish they would just tell me that they don't want to rent to me because of this, versus pump me up to feel like, I'm going to move in and then never return a call. And the face-to-face interaction, when it was just me by myself, was positive. But every time my husband came by, there was just, like I said, they would ask a lot of questions that I'm not typically sure that they would ask other candidates. And then another thing that I feel like is, when you look at the community, I sometimes feel like college students and minorities are pushed to a certain area. I feel like they're only in certain parts of the community. always end up on that east side of town. And so those are some of the things that I have experienced.
And I'll agree with you too, Natalie. I mean, of course, we know historically redlining has always been an issue throughout our country. But I was actually raised in Omaha, Nebraska. And when I moved here, 2004 or something like that, I've been here a while. It was the first time another white person had ever said the N-word to me. I was helping manage some rental properties, and I had a gentleman come up to me, an older white male, and I had rented to some football students at Lincoln, and he lived down the street from him, and he came up to me and he just said horrible things. Like, if you don't get those people out of that building, it's going to be drugs and it's going to be, all kinds of problems. And I was shocked. I mean, I was just shocked. It really like hurt me to my soul. Like, I felt like, why in the world do you think just because I'm white that I'm going to have that same sentiment as you, and you can say that to me? And so I agree too. I think there's some issues in our community, but I think it's throughout the nation as well, as we've seen. And I think it takes all of us just standing up and talking about the issues and not just burying it, to kind of get it out in the open and discuss it.
I will say I've seen some, from 99 to 2020, I have seen some great changes, but I think that there's still an issue here. And another thing that I've noticed from a lot of my peers is getting your deposit back is always a struggle when it comes to minorities. And I've even had that happen to me where my first apartment was on High Street, and I didn't have anything wrong. Me and my husband were on month-to-month lease. We were college students, and when it was time for us to vacate the premises, we had found another apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment. We moved into the Mulberry apartments. They used to be on 60th Mulberry Street. That's no longer there. The landlord refused to give me the deposit back, and this is probably not good, right? But because I'm pretty smart, I pretended like I had lawyers in my family, and he ended up taking me, escorting me to his house and writing me a check right there. But prior to then, and if I was not educated and knew how to talk the talk, I probably would not have gotten that deposit back.
I think that this also comes back to that application thing where landlords can take as many applications as they want, and then they can choose the one that they want as opposed to the first qualified candidate that applies.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as far as the deposit goes too, I think it's educating renters to know what their rights are, and knowing that the landlord has to present an itemized list of what they're saying the deposit is going to and things like that. I mean, and I don't want to give the impression that every landlord here in town is terrible. We have some great landlords, and we have some great ones that keep their properties up, but and renting is hard. I've been on both sides of it. There's a lot of renters that don't respect the properties and don't take care of them and aren't good to the landlords. So it's a difficult balance to make sure that everybody's being treated fairly, but I agree, it's definitely an issue.
And I think we have some work to do on education on that topic in our community. And like Susan said, as she serves on our Human Relations Commission, we've done several programs, and they've been all virtual lately, but we had a fair housing one last year, and that was very helpful to have the realtors and have that feedback and learning about that. But the whole point of the Human Relations Commission is education, and even learning about how to get around in our community with disabilities. And that's also something that affects some that we're talking about as well, that they may not have access to housing as easily as some that do. So finding out from their perspective, what can we do better? But education is really key. And so those are all open to the public. We want to get those out. A lot of them, now that they have been virtual, are likely recorded and still available for viewing. And we appreciate that partnership with the Human Relations Commission and our realtors. And that's why I'm curious what Denise would have on that topic as well, of, what can we do as a community? But I'll tell you, the realtors are really being proactive, and we appreciate that partnership.
Thanks, Carrie. We always appreciate being a part of this. We're very vested in this community. We sell Jefferson City every day. So we really need a good product to sell, and it is. It's fantastic. I think you're right. I think we have a lot of work to do on the education side. As I mentioned earlier, my husband and I are very small time landlords. We just have a few units, but I did grow up in a household. My dad has 32. I, like Susan said, I've been on both sides of that coin. And the longer you're in it, the worse it gets, because you get burned so many times, and somebody who you trusted to take care of your property does some horrible damage. So there's a screening process we use. As Carrie, remind me what your original question was. I just got completely off the thing.
Well, I think where you're going is great, because that's all we're talking about, that just how we work with our realtors so that we have opportunities and aren't having some maybe different bias towards, like when it was mentioned, well, if they brought their husband, they were looked at differently, and I know landlords are different than the property owners, but what can we do maybe to realize? But like you said, if you've had those bad situations, then you look at all renters maybe different, and not giving them that opportunity when they may not realize why, and just, so I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, and I think that, you've got different, like, so you have different scale of landlords. Like I said, we're very small time. My dad is bigger than us. And then you have these people that own, well, it's, to us, our units are retirement. So we obviously want to take, anytime there's something wrong, we want it fixed. We want pride of ownership. We want to make sure it's a safe place. We don't buy anything I wouldn't personally live in. That's, and majority of what we run across as realtors, that's majority of the people that we work with as far as landlords. The people, I think that the corporations that buy things and put managers in place, or the people that just have, multiple multi-family units that are so big that they hire people to take this. I think that might be where the issue is, more so than the owner. Because they're the ones screening. I have heard this, I think it was Tina that said, and I have heard this from people that have applied for our units, that they're taking $45 just for an application. I understand some of that, because if someone turns an application into me, it cost me $32 just to run credit and criminal background. What we have started doing, though, because I think that should be a crime. I don't think you should be able to take $45 from 100 people and then choose one. I think there needs to be some education on property management to be a little bit smarter than that. Have people fill out a short application to determine whether or not you're even going to run. And that's what we do. I'm like, fill out this little questionnaire, and then I will determine whether or not we're even going to run the forward. Now, if I determine from that short application, hey, you look like a great candidate, I would be comfortable going forward with this. I charge $30. It costs me $32, but it's easier, round numbers. There's $30 application fee for us to run your credit and your criminal background. If you've answered these questions correctly, we should not have any problems, and then I go forward. But some education maybe in property management on maybe how to not take $45 from every applicant might be a good thing. I don't know what else. I do see the thing with Natile was saying with like the college student thing. I totally can see where that would happen. You've got a multi-unit complex, and you've had people that have lived there, 10 years, valued tenants, and you don't want to go put a couple of rowdy college students above their head for fear of losing. I get that. I just think there's just so many variables and different scenarios that, but I do see we do have a problem, and we have to figure it out. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. There's a housing shortage, not only in renting. There's a huge housing shortage in those who are wanting to buy. So.
Thank you for all of that. It kind of brings us into a slightly different topic, but as we look at the new city comprehensive draft plan, just to kind of talk about the rent and the numbers that people might not be aware of. The median rent in our area is $684 per month. And that would require a person to make $27,000 plus a year to afford that rent. There are roughly 7,500 households in Jefferson City that fall into that bracket. What are your thoughts on how we can help those families, those individuals?
Natalie, when you made that number 27,000 a year, is that just to be able to afford that rent, or is that up 30% of their, what percentage is allowed for housing in that number?
Usually we use 30%.
Okay.
I'll do the math, but I think that's what it should be.
So I think the simple answer, to put simple in air quotes, is more housing, and more variety of housing. Like, I know a lot of people looked at Habitat right after the tornado, and that's great because we were able to build 4 additional homes there on Jackson Street. And we were thrilled to do so, but Habitat alone can't fix the problem. Home ownership alone can't fix the problem. We need a combination of good rental properties and townhomes and condos and variety of duplexes. And we need more options for people besides just home ownership. We need more housing in general, I think.
I think another problem with reaching that 30% of your income is many of my, if not most of my clients that I work with, they can't find 40-hour-a-week good paying jobs. They're either getting, they're almost all getting very low wage per hour, but then getting a guaranteed 40 hours. I mean, I had a person I dealt with the other day. She's been working at the same place for 18 years and, was supposed to be getting 40 hours, but she says they can just give her 29 hours if they want to. And then how does she pay her bills that month? Many of our people are working for agencies that put them out there as needed. And it's really difficult for them to pay their bills every month. That's a pretty high wage, $27,000. I'm trying to do the math in my head, but that's almost $15 an hour.
And I think we all know there's a lot of jobs in Cole County that don't make $15 an hour. And that's even hard for us when you look at that low income, back to your question, Amy, because for our program, because we do sell the home to the families, they have to be able to afford that mortgage. And so if they fall below that 30% of their income, for what our houses go for, then we can't sell them the home either. So we definitely struggle with people that don't make enough money to be in our program.
I think another thing, as I'm looking at this information that Amy gave us on $684 being the median, I'm thinking of the units I have that I'm thinking I'm under that, far under that on several. And I'm thinking about it's really hard for an investor to be able to go in and buy a property right now because of the housing shortage. Everything is going for premium price. So it's really difficult for someone to go in and even purchase a $50,000 house and get, enough rent to cover the payment, taxes, and insurance. So the housing shortage, I think, is playing into this in a huge way. Obviously, when there's less houses to buy, there's going to be less houses to rent.
Yeah, I think that's an issue that we're hoping to address on a certain level with our transformational housing, recognizing that for people to invest in a new property or even a used property, it makes it a challenge for them to pay their expenses if they're charging below average rent. And so one of our creative ways of doing that is how can the faith community come together to help provide housing on the long term? Because I think even like the opportunities with the capital credits, those have a limited time frame as well. And those are helpful in the short term, but for the long term, that can be an issue as well.
And I think as we look at our jobs available in the community and our employers too, we realize coming off of a pandemic, some businesses have either struggled or gone out of business, and a lot of them were employers. And then before that, we had some businesses that literally got wiped off of our community map that haven't reopened. A lot of them have, thankfully, but there's been a lot of ups and downs over the last 2 years in our community. And if we don't have the jobs to provide, and then they don't have a reliable source of income, they're not going to be able to provide or pay for that housing. So what can we do to make sure? And I mean, it even goes back to shopping local and looking at our community and what offers we have here to keep our local businesses thriving, because it's not all about a business owner. It's about all the people they employ. Even our big box stores, when people say, well, you know, we want to support small, I'm saying support every business in town, because all of those businesses provide local jobs to our community. And I think also job training and skill sets, and making sure that the jobs that are available, that people who need them have the skills and are educated at that level to do what needs to be done. It's not college. I'm saying it could be any skill, and making sure that we can assist in directing them to the right place so that they can afford those homes and get the jobs. Even places like Dreams to Reality and interviewing and having those skills. So all of our organizations are intertwined so that we can make sure that they can find a sustainable source of income. And we need to make sure we seek that out and help with those organizations as well.
And I think you touched on an important key too. I mean, COVID-19 has impacted so many jobs. And when you think about women, to pull it back to women, a lot of women are the healthcare workers. A lot of women are the first, the essential workers. And a lot of them have lost their jobs or lost hours or had to quit their jobs to stay home to take care of kids when the kids weren't in school. And so, yeah, I mean, COVID has really impacted housing in that sense too, because like you said, if they don't have a job, they can't pay their housing. So it's all interconnected. And again, we're not going to solve the housing crisis today as much as I would love to. Like, this issue is so big and it's a nationwide problem, and there's not one city that has figured it out completely. So Jeff City's on the map. We're gonna figure it out, I think. But I think we have to keep that in mind too, that we're talking about all these things to talk about it and bring awareness, but the solutions are hard.
I have some statistics I can share with you guys on average sales price. I know this doesn't go into renting, but it kind of sheds a little bit of light on how difficult purchasing a property just to have as investment is. In 2019, our average sales price was $175,000. Which already seemed high to me. When I started, it was 120, but I've done that for 25 years. So I guess we're good. So we went from 175,000 in 2019 to 191. That is a huge jump. That is the biggest jump I have seen in 25 years. Now, why? I think we're going to attribute some of that to low interest rate, made it more affordable for some people. The pandemic, I have no other reason to not consider that the pandemic played a big part of this. The shortage of inventory, people hunkered down in their houses. They didn't want to move. They didn't want to put it on the market. They don't want people coming through their house. Totally understand that. And like you said, a lot of women, and we learned at our state meeting, we had a mass exodus in our state of women in the workforce last year because of the pandemic. Women had to quit their jobs to stay home for homeschooling. There just simply wasn't a choice. And we've also seen the trend there being another reason for housing shortage, because they were at home, because now some of them are going to have to work from home and the interest rates were low. There was lots of refinancing going on and remodeling to make their home work more for what they now needed. So now that they've refinanced and they're good, they're going to stay where they are, which makes inventory. I mean, and building a house, I'll share with you yesterday, we actually have a rental available. My husband's over there fixing up a few things, and he came home yesterday and he was just like, we all hear about how expensive building has gotten. I hear it all the time, but this really hit me. So 2 years ago, when we redid some of the same house, a 2x4, just a 2x4 was like $1.78. He went to buy a couple yesterday, girls. They are $7 and something a piece. A 2x4. I said, honey, were you in the premium section? You know, and he's like, no, this was just normal, so, COVID and a lot of this has really got it. And like I said, I don't have the answer, but there's definitely a lot of this in, causing the shortage, which then causes people to not have the rentals available.
I totally agree, because here at Habitat, we've seen the prices to build just skyrocket, and it's difficult because, there's not many people who could go and build, like a developer contractor to go build what we build, because even with volunteer labor and donations, like we're still breaking even on what we build and then sell for, and that's with volunteer labor. So yeah, it's a big thing to be able to build affordable housing right now, for sure. Denise, what kind of is the housing market in Jeff City? Like houses around 150,000 or less? Is there a lot of them on the market? Are they selling? Like you said, people just aren't selling, but what's the housing market?
I'm going to tell you that I think we are probably at 1/3 of where we should be. January 2020, we had almost 300 listings to choose from, which was a little on the light side. And this January, we had 141. Last February, we had 300. This February, we had 111. So the housing market in 150 and under is people are paying more than they should for them because there are multiple offers anytime one hits the market, and it usually doesn't last. And just my personal opinion, there's stuff selling for far greater than it should be. And that worries me. I advise my clients, that always worries me. I'm like, when you have to come out of pocket $10,000 cash because the home isn't going to appraise for more than for what you had to spend on it just to get it. And where are we going to be in 2 to 3 years? Are you going to be underwater? So it's a concern. It is a concern, but people are still moving. But I would say, actually, Susan, I would go as far as to say 200 and under is selling fast, just because that is the majority. We've got a new generation of buyers moving into the market, but these generation of buyers that should be going to a move-up home aren't selling, either because they refinanced, they're good, COVID affected their employment. For whatever reason, they're not looking to move forward. And a lot of them that would like to sell can't find the move up house because it's just a vicious circle.
It is. And I was having a conversation with one of my friends. We talk about it quite a bit, about our young children and thinking about whether or not they would stay in Jeff City once they get older and graduate college and they're starting a family. I realize that's a while because my son is 3, thank goodness. Whew. But just the thought of, will they be able to afford a home? Will there be homes in that price range for starter homes and things like that? And I think that's something that Jeff City would need to look at as a community to make sure that there are those priced homes for people to have before they jump up, like you said, to a different price range.
Yeah. Then the other thing at the state meeting that really surprised me was we have right now more adult children living with their parents than we had in the Great Depression. Yeah. And it's some of it's affordability, some of it's just, a generational thing. But
although I don't know, adulting is hard. And if I could move back with my parents, I might do it.
9-year-old is currently still living with me. And one of the things that I would like to touch on a little bit that I feel like could be important is, so I'm also a homeowner through Habitat for Humanity. My family lost our home that we were renting to own over on Jackson. We were closing that November. The tornado happened in May. And my husband and I invested a lot of money in that home and we didn't get any of that back. But one of the things that I have appreciated so much about Habitat for Humanity is just simple education. Not everyone is groomed to be homeowners or even are educated about renting. And so the classes that I have been able to take with Habitat for Humanity have been so vital for myself and my husband, because we didn't know any of these things. You know, my mom she's a great mother, but she was busy working, and that was just not a topic of conversation that we had. And my mom actually didn't get her first home until I moved out to come to Jeff City to come to college at 17. So that's when my mom became a first-time homeowner. And since then, you know, because of the education and knowing how to maintain it, she's no longer a homeowner. She's, you know, living in an apartment. And so one of the things that I think would be vital if we could offer just more educational classes about, you know, renting and homeowners, and the classes that we are offered at Two for Life. Like I said, they have been extremely vital for myself and my husband, because I don't know if, you know, they have been very helpful.
So I did not pay her to say that, but I love it because I agree. Like, I have been executive director here for almost 5 years, and what she's talking about is a monthly class that we require our homeowners to go through as they're going through the program. And we teach about home maintenance, or understanding closing documents, or shopping for homeowners insurance, and budgeting. And I'm not going to lie, like, I go to the class listening to the guest speakers, taking notes myself. And, you know, there's a big misconception that only people in poverty, which isn't even Habitat homeowners, but that they are the only ones that need education. And I think it's something that is needed throughout our community. So I think it's important too.
We've talked about a lot of things, ladies. Thank you for the contribution so far. I do want to make sure everyone just has the opportunity before we wrap up. If there's any topic of particular interest, or specifically in the education that has come up a lot today, in educating our community and around the country, what is it exactly? If there's something in addition to what we talked about, like Natile just discussed, home ownership and even renting rights, and what should be required for them to keep your deposit. We've talked about a few of those things, but if there's anything else that you would say is one of the top things that you would like for people to be more educated about that in our community.
I would like to see that we get Lincoln University also as part of the group. And I know they are very much in, I think, every committee that we've ever had. So I know they're likely on here, you know, somewhere on our invite for the future things, but especially as much as we talked about students. And in addition, I think that they can really help us with education, and those students, regardless whether they're renting now or living on campus, eventually they're going to be a homeowner likely. And so I think that if we can engage them, that would be super helpful. And then I think that it's so appropriate, this topic is building. And of course, we're focused on building houses. And we also realize that all of those homes are really built with love, and they're built with us working together. And so, you know, we're building homes, but we're building relationships, we're building communications, we're building so many of these things that we're building success for the women in our community, as we're talking about, and families and working together. So I think it's important we continue building those things, and also building on how we can keep everybody, you know, the wellness aspect of it. I know the mental wellness, and making sure that everybody is well despite all the challenges we faced, and even things like nutrition, and connecting them with resources, and making sure that they realize what is available out there, and how to sustain that. So there's so many topics, and like Susan said, we're not solving it, but by getting together, we really are making a difference. And I think this is the example that Susan getting us together, it's only going to grow. We bring more input in, and then we can find out how to, one by one, you know, we didn't get here overnight, but as we're seeing these small wins in our community, how we can make it happen, and hearing all these stories and the firsthand experiences that have been had, it helps make us all better that those have been gone through, so that we can help that in the future.
And I'll mention that the Missouri Association of Realtors has a program, and in line with the education to Lincoln, I think it even starts earlier than college. I think in high school, the curriculum needs to include some of this. It did when I was, but it wasn't when my son went through. So we and it's free for teachers, and it's a virtual learning program online. If any of you guys would like it, it goes through the whole, you know, what is homeownership versus renting, why your credit score would matter if you're renting, you know, all of those things that people just need to be educated on. I think the sooner we start educating them, the better it's going to be in the future. So anybody feel free to reach out to me. Like I said, it's geared towards high school, but if you can use it in your program, it's completely free and it's an online virtual learning thing. Just reach out. I'll give you the link.
I think one of the things that I would add as well is how are we building collaboration between all of our organizations, and how are we working together and help support each other and find the gaps that need to be addressed as well. And again, all that goes back to relationships. How are we building those relationships that are supportive and enabling those in our community to get to a better place? So I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation today, and how we are looking to partner together and be a part of the solution.
Any last minute thoughts, additions?
So I'll just say it's been amazing talking to you ladies. I love that we're a group of women that can come together and talk about these issues. Not that men are excluded in any way, but sometimes it takes the female voice to maybe get some things done. So I appreciate you guys being part of the Women Build Week with us. And I look forward to continuing having conversations with all of you. All right, welcome. So, as you can see, safe, affordable housing is a large issue, not only in our community, but throughout the nation. And so it's a big issue, but there's lots of solutions that can be in place. And so I encourage you to get involved with any of the organizations in our community, such as Habitat for Humanity, Transformational Housing, and many, many others. And so I hope that you will continue the conversation on your own and continue to work on the housing crisis in Jefferson City and beyond. Be sure to check out our social media pages and our website for more information about how to get involved with Habitat. I want to thank all of our panelists today for the great conversation, as well as Habitat International and Lowe's for partnering with us to bring awareness to the barriers that women face when trying to find affordable housing. Thank you, everyone.